engineering.
Every regulated industry faces the same bottleneck. Marketing, advertising, and client-facing communications must pass through legal and compliance review before they go live. A compliance officer reads the material line by line, cross-referencing regulations, enforcement actions, and internal policies. One person, multiple regulatory bodies, dozens of pieces of content per week. Off-the-shelf AI compliance tools work the same way every time. Paste your copy into a chat interface. One model reads it once. You get back a generic list of flagged phrases. The word guarantee may be problematic. Problematic under which regulation, in which context, with which exceptions, the tool does not say. That is the ceiling of single-pass compliance review. One model cannot simultaneously hold SEC advertising rules, FINRA communication standards, FDA promotional requirements, state insurance regulations, and your internal compliance policies in working memory. It flags words. It does not reason about regulatory frameworks. Taylor Legal Engineering builds something fundamentally different: custom multi-agent compliance architectures where specialized AI regulatory agents, each one an expert on a specific regulatory body, review communications in parallel and produce citation-backed compliance assessments. Before any review begins, an AI regulatory classifier identifies which frameworks apply to this specific communication. A mutual fund performance advertisement triggers SEC Investment Company Act rules, FINRA advertising rules, and state blue sky laws. A pharmaceutical direct-to-consumer ad triggers FDA fair balance requirements and FTC substantiation doctrine. The classifier maps the content type, product category, and distribution channel to specific regulatory obligations. Based on the classification, the system deploys dedicated AI compliance agents, one per applicable regulatory framework: an SEC advertising agent, a FINRA communications agent, an FDA promotional review agent, an FTC substantiation agent, a state regulatory agent. Each agent reviews the same communication simultaneously against its specific regulatory domain. Consider a financial services firm submitting an email campaign promoting a new investment advisory service. The SEC advertising agent reviews performance claims against Rule 20641. Finding: net performance is shown without gross performance. A violation. The one-year performance is shown without required comparison periods. A violation. Each finding cites the specific rule subsection and references recent enforcement actions. At the same time, the FINRA communications agent reviews under Rule 2210. The testimonial lacks required disclosures. The benchmark comparison omits material differences. The state regulatory agent identifies 3 states requiring pre-publication filing of advertising materials. Every finding carries a specific regulatory citation, not generic warnings, actionable compliance intelligence. After all regulatory agents complete their review, a synthesis layer consolidates findings. It eliminates duplicate flags, resolves conflicts between regulatory frameworks where one regulation requires a disclosure that another restricts, and produces a prioritized compliance assessment. Critical issues, high-priority improvements, and informational observations. Each finding includes the specific regulatory citation, the exact language that triggers the finding, proposed revised language that resolves the issue, and a risk assessment. Your compliance team receives a report they can act on immediately, not a list of vague warnings they must research independently. The output: a compliant communication with every regulatory requirement addressed. Approval stamps tied to specific regulatory frameworks. A complete audit trail documenting every finding, every resolution, and every citation. What used to take a compliance team hours of manual cross-referencing across multiple regulatory handbooks now happens in minutes. Not by cutting corners, by deploying specialized AI agents that each know their regulatory domain deeply enough to cite specific rules. When you subscribe to an off-the-shelf AI compliance tool, you get generic flags without regulatory citations, no understanding of your specific regulatory environment, no integration with your internal compliance policies, your marketing content processed on someone else's servers. If their model changes, your compliance assessments change. If they misunderstand a regulation, you bear the enforcement risk. When TLE builds a compliance workflow for your team, you get a working code repository delivered to your infrastructure, your regulatory agent set configured for your specific regulatory obligations, your internal policies encoded alongside regulatory requirements, your data staying on your servers, auditable, human-controlled, regulation-specific, channel-aware, integrated. Off-the-shelf compliance tools are a rental. What TLE builds is compliance infrastructure you own. This was Episode 4, Regulated Communications. Taylor Legal Engineering builds custom multi-agent compliance architectures that transform how regulated businesses review marketing and advertising content. Every engagement, assessment, design, build, handoff, fixed scope, fixed price, you own the deliverables. Taylor Legal Engineering. We don't sell compliance software. We build compliance infrastructure. Let's talk about what we can build for your team.